where we find Chriselda Lewis at St. Pius X Catholic Church. She is live for us there, getting a sense of the atmosphere. And as we were talking about earlier on, Chriselda, bit of a complex atmosphere, right? There's a sadness, there's melancholy, but also there's celebration in terms of what difference Francis made in the lives of many.
Being the first pontiff from Latin America and the first from the Southern Hemisphere, also the first to take the name Francis. So Pope Francis, also became the first non-European elected in almost 1,300 years, we've been saying. The 88-year-old Archbishop of Buenos Aires was elected, you'd recall, in March 2013, becoming the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. And if you recall, you go back, he said, "My people are poor, and I am one of them." He said that on many occasions, and we saw that, in his decision to live in an apartment and cook his own supper, for example. He's also always advised, as we've heard since the announcement of his passing, advised his priests to show mercy and apostolic courage and to keep their doors open to everyone. You'd recall a time when he had said the worst thing, Blaine, that could happen to the church, he'd said on various occasions, is spiritual worldliness, which would mean, being self-centered. And when he spoke of social justice, he called on people first of all to pick up the catechism, to, rediscover the 10 Commandments. So his project was basically simple. If you follow Christ, you would understand that trampling upon a person's dignity is a serious sin. So, despite his reserved character, as some have described, his official biography consisting of only a few lines, Blaine, at least until his appointment as the Archbishop of Buenos Aires. And, he became a reference point because of the strong stances that he took during the dramatic financial crisis that had overwhelmed, the country in 2001. But of course, if we talk about the legacy of Pope Francis, we talk about many areas, where he visited. I did say in my much earlier crossing in 2013, it was no surprise that his first visit out of Rome was to the Italian island of Lampedusa. And that was where, you had migrants, many who had died trying to cross the Mediterranean, him wanting to bring light to that particular plight. But at where I am broadcasting from, we're expecting a service, a mass to take place here this morning. And as you can see behind me, some of the congregants are already making their way. We're expecting many members of the diplomatic corps, some congregants from around this area, congregants of this church. And this is basically, to pay homage to a man that has been described as the Pope of the people. Now, Pope Francis, you'd recall, had visited Madagascar in 2019, and I'm joined now by Ms. Volodymyra Rabajoana, who's the Chargé d'Affaires of the Embassy of Madagascar here in Pretoria. Ma'am, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. I guess like the rest of the world, Madagascar also mourns with the Pope having visited your country in 2019. Your message?
The loss of Pope Francis is indeed a great loss for all the community, the Christian community in the world, and all the people in the world. So the Malagasy people shared this morning, and I also extend the condolences of the Malagasy people in this sad occasion. Yes. When His Holiness Pope Francis visited Madagascar in September 2019, he left a strong message to the Malagasy people. In that occasion, he reminded the importance of the Malagasy value of Fihavanana, which means solidarity and brotherhood, and more precisely, sharing and helping one another in difficult times. Pope Francis said that such values should be put forward and put in practice in that country blessed with abundant natural resources. He also said that job creation should be a priority in order to preserve those beautiful and unique fauna and flora which are endangered by human activities. And finally, he encouraged empathic listening between people and leaders in Madagascar.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ms. Falavamora Rabajwana, who's a charged affairs at the Embassy of Madagascar, sharing your message of condolence on behalf of the Malagasy people. And you'd recall, Blaine, as I indicated, that Pope Francis did visit Madagascar in 2019. That was just a message which was being read by the charged affairs of the Embassy of Madagascar here in Pretoria. We were expecting, many diplomats to be part of today's ceremony, or in fact this mass which is being held in honor of Pope Francis. And, the words that she mentions is what we've heard throughout, since the announcement of the passing of Pope Francis, how he urged, leaders, world leaders. He certainly didn't shy away from that, to put the people first. Remember, we're talking about someone who's been described as a Pope of the people. So the words that he shared, even with world leaders, was how they could put their people first. But I'm not alone here at the Mass, which is expected to get underway very shortly. I'm also with my colleague Khayelihle Khumalo, who is on the other side.
Well, certainly, Chriselda, a very outspoken Pope. He spoke extensively about the issues of climate change. For example, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres really saying that when you go back to the 2015 Paris Agreement, Pope Francis was very instrumental in really just knowing the realities. The climate change really wreaking havoc in so many parts of the world. But also you go back to the recent G7 summit in Borgo Egnazia in Italy, where he addressed one of the sessions really talking about the significance of artificial intelligence, talking about the pros and cons. So this was a Pope really was fairly modern, who really understood and so really well attuned with the global issues. But to really reflect on the life and times of Pope Francis, we do have the communication officer here from Southern Africa for the Catholic Church, Sheila Paresh. Sheila, we saw that photo that you had with Pope Francis. Maybe let's really focus the personal moments with the Pope, so close to him, and really a Pope really who was so attuned with all these issues, whether you're talking about the gay community, whether you're talking about the migrant community. So a Pope really understood that he had a very monumental task to achieve in this regard.
That's true. Pope Francis was that person. You could have a conversation with him about anything and everything. And he had a lot of compassion for everyone. He loved the world and the world loved him. So you could approach Pope Francis and speak to him about anything, really. I remember one time we were just talking about migrants and refugees, as you said. As you know, the Catholic Church does a lot to assist migrants and refugees also here in South Africa. And as a matter of fact, it's the Scalabrinian priests and sisters who often assist with that regard. So I remember having a conversation with him about it, and also looking at the funds to assist them, because usually they struggle when they go, for example, for health treatment and stuff. And so we're talking about that, and that's one topic that was very close to Pope Francis' heart. As you know, he's a child of migrant parents as well. So migrants and refugees were very close to his heart.
And obviously, Sheila, we know that the Pope visited so many countries in the African continent. Well-documented issues. Who would forget that moment when he was kissing the feet of Riek Machar, the Vice President of South Sudan, alongside President, of course, Mayardit Salva Kiir of South Sudan. So this was a Pope was was quite vociferous and very vocal about the issues of global peace. Whether you're looking at the current situation in Gaza, this was a Pope who said it's quite a very deplorable situation. And Sheila, of course, we saw even in Mozambique, President Daniel Chapo as well, having a tribute to honor Pope Francis.
Yeah. Well, as you said, he was very vocal about that, about peace and stability throughout the world, but he also was very close to Africa. And as a matter of fact, there was that time when he visited the DRC when he said, hands off Africa, because really the root cause of all the conflicts you're seeing in Africa is all our mineral resources. And that's exactly what's happening in the DRC, in South Sudan, in north of Mozambique, and the list goes on. So, yes, he was very vocal when it came to that. He didn't shy away from it. Even when you had the powers that be wanting to determine how things should take place, how these wars should be handled, Pope Francis nevertheless never stopped to advocate for peace. Even from hospital, he continued to call for peace. As a matter of fact, he would call the priests in the Gaza Strip and just to check on them. How are you? How are things? That was Pope Francis for you.
Sheila, before I let you go, let's talk about your fondest memories. When I spoke to some of the fathers during the course of the week, they spoke also about a very stubborn man. The doctors were saying, no, 2 months break, but he will still go out. He will still go and wash the feet of the inmates. He will still go and wave at the crowd. Your fondest memories at this point?
I think one of my fondest memories was when we had a private audience with Pope Francis. And, throughout the Synod Assembly, I would always go up to him, always have a chat with him during tea time or during breaks. I'll just go up and sit down with him and talk. So one of my fondest memories was the private audience. When I asked to ask him a question, I raised my hand and I was told, yes, you can go ahead. So you have to literally walk across to the other side and get to the microphone and then address him. So as I was walking across, the Pope was like, oh, Sheila, South Africa. And I thought, oh my goodness, the Pope knows me by name like that. And I felt, I got a bit distracted because for me it was like, oh great, now he knows me by name very well. He knows my face, my name very well. Because, he deals with lots of people every day. So for him to remember you like that, that, okay, that's something. So yeah, I think that was one of my fondest memories.
All right. Okay, Sheila Paresha, thank you so much indeed. Of course, she's a communication officer for the Catholic here in Southern Africa.